If you'd told me last year I'd end up fighting a homeowners association over a garden gnome, I would have laughed and cracked open another beer. But here I was, standing in my driveway, coffee in one hand, hose in the other, spraying down a patchy lawn that looked more like a sick quilt than actual grass. Rusty, my old golden retriever, was sprawled on the porch like a melted pancake, snoring louder than the neighbor's kid playing Fortnite at 2 a.m. My truck, a dented 2002 Tacoma with one working headlight and a "Don't Tread on Me" bumper sticker peeling off, sat proudly in the driveway, daring anyone to judge it. Life was simple: ugly lawn, lazy dog, bad truck. I liked it that way. The neighborhood was straight out of one of those glossy brochures: perfect hedges, identical mailboxes, American flags fluttering on every third porch like some HOA-mandated ratio. I figured I'd slide under the radar, keep to myself, wave when necessary, mow the lawn sometimes, stay invisible. That dream died the second I checked the mailbox. Wedged between a dentist flyer and a coupon for 20% off oil changes was a heavy cream-colored envelope. No return address, but it had that self-important feel, like it was carrying a message from the Vatican or the IRS. I tore it open, standing there in the street, hose still running, dribbling water into my boot. Notice of non-compliance, it read in aggressive block letters. Apparently my fence, the same fence that had been standing just fine when I bought the place 3 months ago, wasn't in keeping with community standards. Something about color deviations and material inconsistencies. Translation: it was brown, and the neighbors were all a delicate shade of Martha Stewart white. I stared at the letter, then looked at my fence. Solid, stable, definitely brown. My brain ping-ponged between irritation and laughter. Rusty lifted his head, gave me a "you gonna throw that away or what" look, and plopped back down. "Well, buddy," I said, crumpling the letter into a ball and tossing it into the recycling bin with a three-pointer shot. "Guess we're officially on the radar." The hose slipped from my hand and flopped around like a dying fish spraying my jeans. I cursed, grabbed it, and couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, real invisible, Mike, real invisible. The first time I saw her, she was standing at the edge of my yard like she was about to call in an airstrike. Clipboard clutched to her chest, lipstick so bright it could signal ships, and a scowl that could peel paint. She was small, maybe 5'0", but had the posture of a drill sergeant. I killed the hose, wiped my hands on my jeans, and gave her the friendliest nod I could manage. "Morning," I said, half expecting her to hiss like a vampire seeing sunlight. "You're in violation," she announced, voice sharp enough to cut glass. No hello, no welcome to the neighborhood, straight to the violations. She jabbed a finger at my lawn gnome, a little guy in a blue hat holding a fishing pole, sitting by the porch. Rusty wagged his tail lazily behind it, probably thinking she was there to rub his belly. "Unauthorized decorative elements," she barked, flipping through her clipboard like she was about to deliver a sermon. "And this," she said, sweeping her arm dramatically at my makeshift dog swing, a rope tied from the porch beam with a ragged old tire at the end. "Unapproved structures." I opened my mouth, closed it, then tried again. "It's for my dog," I said, "not a Starbucks patio." She didn't blink. She clicked her pen, clicked it again, took a deep, disapproving breath. "You'll need to remove them both by Friday," she said, scribbling furiously on her form, "or face escalating penalties." I stared at her like she'd just told me I owed taxes on Rusty's chew toys. "Lady," I said slowly, "this gnome's been fishing longer than I've lived here, and Rusty's older than half the roofs on this street." "Rules are rules," she snapped, already pivoting on her sensible sneakers. She stomped down the sidewalk past Mr. Peterson's sagging mailbox, which no one seemed to mind, and disappeared around the corner, a tiny whirlwind of paperwork and rage. Rusty gave a low, confused woof. "Yeah, buddy," I said, scratching behind his ears. "I think we just met the welcoming committee." By the end of the week, my mailbox looked like it had signed up for every HOA violation subscription known to man. 3 new letters. 3 in 5 days. I stood there in my driveway, flipping through them like bad lottery tickets, while Rusty sat on the porch chewing what was left of his rope toy, probably the next thing on their hit list. First notice, excessive lawn discoloration. Second, non-uniform fence paint, still outstanding. Third, and my personal favorite, visible storage of unauthorized yard items. Apparently, the rusted rake and a cracked flower pot I'd shoved behind the shed counted as a federal offense now. I half expected a 4th letter citing Rusty for public indecency for sleeping belly up in the sun. I crumpled the letters and stuffed them into the same trash can I'd dumped the first one. It was getting crowded in there. Later that night, I sat on the porch with a beer, scrolling through my phone. My thumb hovered over the HOA website, the one they plastered across all their threatening notes. A beautiful stock photo of smiling neighbors with the tagline, "Building Community Together." What a joke. Somewhere across the street, I spotted a golf cart crawling past, headlights off, moving slow like it thought it was invisible. Inside, a bulky figure hunched over the wheel, clipboard in hand. Neighborhood watch, my ass. Rusty gave a low growl, barely lifting his head. I watched the cart creep past my driveway, turn at the corner, and vanish. So now we had HOA goons running recon at night. Awesome, totally normal, not cult-like at all. I knocked back the rest of my beer and leaned back in the chair, listening to the buzz of cicadas and the distant hum of sprinklers. For a second, I thought about caving, painting the damn fence, hiding the gnome, throwing a tarp over my entire life. But then I looked at Rusty, flopped sideways, tongue lolling out, living his best no-dams-given life, and something in me hardened. Nah, screw that. If they wanted a war over a gnome and a patchy lawn, they were gonna get one. And Mike Hudson didn't lose wars, especially not stupid ones. By Monday morning, the gloves were off. I woke up to find a bright orange sticker slapped across my front door like a scarlet letter. Final warning, non-compliance will result in legal action. Bold, underlined, as if I needed help feeling welcome. Rusty barked once, sniffed it, and peed on the porch rail in solidarity. Good boy. I peeled the sticker off, muttering curses under my breath, and checked the driveway. A white SUV was idling across the street, engine humming low. The same dude from the golf cart, except now he had a radio clipped to his belt and aviators like he thought he was DEA. We made eye contact. He smiled. I waved with exactly one finger. Inside, I brewed coffee while flipping through a brand new violation packet someone had lovingly shoved under my door overnight. It was thicker than my mortgage agreement. Each page had high-resolution photos of my property, the gnome, the swing, the fence, even a zoomed-in shot of Rusty mid-scratch like he was committing a crime. The nerve. They were fining me now. $50 for the unauthorized structure, $75 for failure to maintain lawn aesthetic standards, and $100 for persistent disregard of community directives. Total, $225 due immediately or risk a lien on my house. Over a damn lawn gnome and a brown fence. I sat there, drinking bitter coffee and feeling my blood pressure creep toward orbit. For a second, I almost laughed. It was so stupid it looped back around to impressive. But somewhere between the third and fourth read-through of the payment portal instructions, the humor burned off, leaving nothing but cold resolve. They weren't just being annoying, they were coming after my home, my little patch of imperfect peace, and I wasn't about to let a clipboard army bully me off my own porch. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over contacts. I had a vague memory of Cindy, my buddy Tom's sister, mentioning she worked for a real estate attorney downtown. Time to stop playing nice. Time to stop playing, period. Cindy picked up on the second ring. Mike Hudson. Long time, what's up? She said, her voice bright like she actually enjoyed her job, which immediately made me suspicious. I didn't waste time. Hey, you still working that legal thing downtown? Real estate law? Yep, easements, zoning disputes, nightmare HOAs, you name it, she said. I could hear the clack of a keyboard in the background. Why? You in trouble? Not yet, I said, but some clipboard warriors are trying real hard. 20 minutes later, I was parked outside Jitter's Coffee, our unofficial town hall for bad news and broken plans. Cindy breezed in wearing jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie that said "License to Grill" over a picture of a barbecue. Professionalism, small town edition. I slid the packet of violations across the sticky table. She didn't even blink, just started flipping through with the same casual detachment you'd use skimming a bad Yelp review. Holy crap, she muttered, pausing at the photo of Rusty mid-scratch. They filed a complaint about your dog's hygiene? I shrugged. Apparently, Rusty violates their aesthetic standards. Cindy snorted. These fines aren't just over the top, they're illegal. She jabbed a page with her finger. According to the HOA's own charter, and yes, I pulled it up before I got here, they have to give 30 days notice and offer mediation before issuing monetary penalties. They skipped right to pay us or we take your house. That's a big fat no-no. I leaned back, letting that sink in. So what can I do? Besides, set their office on fire, obviously. She smiled sweetly. Lawyer letter. First step. Demand they cease all penalty enforcement immediately. Request a full audit of their procedures. Remind them that violating their own charter could void their authority to collect dues at all. I whistled low. You had that locked and loaded, huh? Cindy winked. I hate bullies, especially ones hiding behind fake rules. By the time I left Jitters, I had a draft letter saved in my email, a to-go coffee, and a hell of a lot more ammo than I'd started the morning with. When I got home, I printed out the letter, signed it with a flourish, and hand-delivered it straight to the HOA office. It was a sad little room wedged between a dry cleaner and a vape shop, decorated with fake ferns and bad energy. I taped the letter to their locked door with a piece of bright red duct tape. Petty? Maybe? Satisfying? Absolutely. Rusty barked twice from the truck window like he knew we'd just fired the first real shot. Game on. It only took 2 days for the real dirt to bubble up. I was fixing the busted latch on my front gate, the same one that HOA probably had dreams of condemning, when my neighbor Rick wandered over, cup of gas station coffee in hand. Rick was the kind of guy who wore socks with sandals and thought small talk was a competitive sport. Word is, he said, sipping loudly, you pissed off the queen of the HOA. Feels more like poked a hornet's nest with a baseball bat, I muttered, wiping sweat off my forehead. Rick leaned in like he was passing state secrets. You know Jerry, right? Guy 3 houses down? White Jeep? Creepy gnome collection? I nodded. Jerry had at least 20 gnomes, made my one fishing guy look practically minimalist. Jerry told me, Rick whispered, glancing around even though no one was within earshot, the HOA president, Cheryl, owns a landscaping company. Real slick operation. Guess who gets recommended for fixing all the violations? I blinked. You're kidding. Rick grinned, teeth flashing like he'd just sold me a used car. Nope. HOA finds you, then quietly suggests hiring Cheryl's team to expedite compliance, at a discount, of course. He made air quotes so aggressive he almost spilled his coffee. My stomach turned. Suddenly, the constant push to repaint my fence, resod my lawn, hide my dog's swing, it all clicked. It wasn't about community standards, it was about padding someone's damn pockets. How many people are paying her? I asked. Rick shrugged. Dunno, enough. Jerry said he shelled out almost $1,000 last summer just to stop getting tickets about his mailbox paint. $1,000 for mailbox paint. I stared down the street past the pristine hedges and perfectly manicured yards. They weren't just controlling the neighborhood, they were running a hustle. I felt a slow grin stretch across my face, not a happy grin, more like a shark spotting an open wound. This wasn't just about my gnome anymore, this was war, and now I had ammo, real ammo. The community center smelled like old carpet and broken dreams. I sat near the back, arms crossed, watching neighbors trickle in, couples in matching polos, retirees with their clipboards, young families balancing toddlers and travel mugs. Every single one looked either irritated or exhausted, maybe both. The HOA board sat at a folding table up front, all trying to look official behind cheap microphones. Cheryl, Queen Bee herself, wore a bright pink blazer like she was hosting a game show. I waited. Let them get comfortable, let them think this was just another meeting where they read violation reports and no one fought back. When Cheryl called for community comments, I stood up, chair scraping the tile loud enough to make everyone flinch. Mike Hudson, 117 Oak Lane, I said, my voice steady, carrying across the room. Got a couple things to bring up. Cheryl smiled, that tight, fake smile people use when they're internally calculating body disposal options. Of course, Mr. Hudson, you have 2 minutes. I pulled out a stack of papers, copies of the HOA charter, my violation notices, the letter Cindy helped draft, and, most importantly, a list of Cheryl's landscaping contracts with other homeowners. Thank you, nosy neighbors and public records requests. I walked to the front and laid everything down on the table like I was playing a royal flush. You've been issuing illegal fines, I said calmly, tapping the top page, violating your own bylaws, and conveniently steering homeowners to your private company for remediation services. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone dropped a coffee cup. Cheryl laughed, a short, brittle sound. Those are baseless accusations. Cool, I said, flipping to the next sheet. Then maybe you can explain these invoices, all billed to homeowners you find, all paid to your company, all within 2 weeks of enforcement actions. I heard a low, holy crap, from somewhere behind me. Good, they were listening now. A board member, Todd, I think, Sully, leaned over and started whispering furiously to Cheryl. She waved him off, face flushing deeper by the second. Furthermore, I said, as per Article 5, Section B of the HOA Charter, any board member found to be profiting from enforcement actions is subject to immediate removal by resident vote. Dead silence. I pulled a petition out of my back pocket, thick with signatures Rick and a few others had helped collect over the last 48 hours. Guess what, Cheryl? I said, holding it up. We got enough. Someone clapped, then another, and another. Cheryl sat there frozen, lips moving but no sound coming out as her little empire crumbled right there under the flickering fluorescent lights. 2 weeks later, I was back on my porch, coffee in one hand, Rusty's leash in the other, watching the HOA office across the street get a new sign bolted onto the door. Interim Neighborhood Committee, residents only. No more Cheryl, no more mystery finds, no more midnight clipboard patrols creeping around like broke mall cops. The vote was decisive, over 80% in favor of removing the entire board. Cheryl didn't even stick around for the final tally. Last I heard, she was taking time to focus on her family, which was HOA speak for packing up before anyone sues. The fines against me? Wiped. Official apology letter in my mailbox, signed, notarized, and probably written under the influence of pure panic. I framed it, hung it right over Rusty's water bowl. He deserved to drink next to a symbol of victory. Rick wandered over, waving a beer even though it was barely noon. "Freedom tastes like Bud Light," he said, cracking it open and sitting on my porch steps without asking. Not that I minded. I grinned, scratching Rusty's ears. Feels weird, doesn't it? No new violations, no lurking golf carts, nobody yelling about gnomes. We both looked at the front yard. The gnome, freshly repainted in obnoxiously bright neon colors, stood proudly by the porch. The dog swing had a new tire. I even let the grass grow a little wild, just to see if anyone would dare say something. No one did. Across the neighborhood, things felt lighter. People waved more. Kids played soccer in yards without getting evil glares. Somebody even hosted a block party last weekend, barbecue smoke rolling down the street like a peace offering. Maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe someone would eventually find a new reason to gripe. But for now, the lawn was brown, the gnome was ugly, and Rusty was snoring like a chainsaw in the shade. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like home. I leaned back in my chair, kicked my boots up on the porch rail, and raised my coffee mug toward Rick. "To stupid wars worth fighting," I said. He clinked his beer can against my cup with a crooked smile. "Damn right."